There's one last thing I want to do with level design before we move on. So whenever I press play, you can see we have this nice, actually I might want to maximize this, Whenever we press play, you can see we have this nice wall to climb. We have our rocks there, and we can hop up. Then we have our awkward prototyping assets still there, but other than that, it all looks pretty good. Except for, maybe the most glaring thing, a large, dark gray background that never changes and is a complete void. That makes no sense in almost every scenario. So when I drop off, I probably shouldn't just see gray for the entirety of it. I also should probably have a reset zone down there, but I don't think I ended up placing that in. So there's a few ways we can handle this. First off, we could try to change what's called the skybox. So you can see that there's this blue, this sky texture that goes down to a gray. And this can be changed. You can edit it. You can go near materials and you can go create material. And then you can call it skybox or something. And after doing it, you can actually go over to your shader, just sort of fancy just for like how we draw things. If you go down to skybox, there's a procedural option. And boom, you can see that it sort of looks like a skybox when you do that. So you have to go up to shader, down to skybox, over to procedural. So we can use this and maybe think about how to make things look a little bit better. So I think gray is maybe a pretty ugly color, maybe blue like the sky or something. So there's two options here, sky tint and ground tint. I'm going to take the ground and try to tint it more like a sky, I suppose. Just like a very light blue. Yeah, something like that. You can sort of preview it in this little box here. And that's okay for now. So now to test it out, you just take your skybox and go ahead and drag and drop it into your world. And now everything is blue. If I press play, got a nice blue world, which is okay. To the material? Yeah. Yeah, so up here you have shader, then you go down to skybox, then you go to procedural. This is the folder that we made. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah, you don't need it. I think this is probably from the first workshop when I made these. So initially I tried this when trying to design this level, and I think it works out okay. But when you press play, it still looks pretty boring in my mind. It doesn't look that great. It's all just a constant color, which is fine, but it's not the best. It's not the best. So that's okay. I actually want to go back to the old one for now, so I'm going to go to Window up here, then Lighting, all the way down here, and then Settings. And it gives you this little window. And you can drag it around, but I'm actually just going to drag it over and place it right next to the inspector right here, so we have quick access to it. There's a bunch of things, but you can see our skybox material right here, called skybox. You can click on it and press delete. It will go completely away. You now have no skybox. Not usually what you want. I want to go back to the default. So what we do is we click on this right here, and then there's all the options for materials in the level. I'm just going to type in default, and you can see Unity provides us some default ones, and there's a nice default skybox here. So I'm going to click on that, get back to our nice gray and blue skybox. So skyboxes didn't work out perfectly. It's not what I really wanted. So what is our next option? So you could go and you could make a skybox. You could go and draw one that maybe looked more, maybe you'd put clouds below you or something like that, and that could look okay. But what I decided to do, and what I think looked best with what we have, is sort of building a background, more or less. So let's go ahead and do that. So looking at our project folder, I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to go ahead and grab this one right here. Again, I really like these mountains. I think they look nice. So I'm going to drag it out there. Cool. That looks pretty good. And in my inspector, I'm going to make it a scale of 100 on the X, Y, and Z. So now it's nice and big. And I'm going to sort of maybe reset its position and drop its position down to around negative 200 or so, I think. No, maybe even more than that. Negative 400? Yeah, about negative 400, I suppose. So that's about where I have it. But the issue that you'll start to see is when you start putting objects this far away and this big, it starts to get very odd to like look at them. Like if you press F, it'll zoom in, but it still ends up being really slow. You can press Shift when you're moving to move a little bit faster, but even that is still slow in my mind. So there are some nice other ways to navigate your scene that we avoided telling you at first to hope to not confuse you, but this might be a good time to go over them. So the main one that I tend to use is pressing Alt or Option and then left clicking. When you do that, it's going to start rotating around whatever you last pressed F on, whatever you last focused on. So you can do that and just get a quick view. You can move miles faster than you could using the WASD scheme. And then before we have zooming as well. I'm sure you guys have gotten used to that. And you can also press Q. You get a nice little drag all around. But the one that I tend to use the most is Alt and Option, and then moving around like that. So we have this here. It's pretty good. So now what we want to do is I want to cover the ground with these mountains. I want to make it look like there's a large mountain range underneath you. So either we're just on this really tall, thin mountain, or we're just on some floating island. But there is a world underneath us is sort of the idea. So the main issue we have with this is we don't have a mountain range given to us. But we can build one with our level designing skills. So how we're going to do that is I'm going to quickly take this one, do Control D, and then duplicate it. And then I'm going to take this one that I duplicated, and I'm going to just rotate it around a little bit, make it look a tad different. Squeeze it in right there. And then press Control D again. Move this one down here, rotate this one a little bit. Just give it some character, give it some life. And then maybe scoot them up and down a little bit. Varying their heights is very helpful for making things look different, even if they're the exact same. In addition, we can actually go over to our scale and change the X and Y to negative 100 if we want. And that doesn't really affect it much, but it technically changes the model, so that doesn't look the same. So I can do that and maybe drag this one down a little bit. Okay. So we have a nice tiny little mountain range right there. Not bad. Not bad. I'm going to go ahead and drag select all of these. I'm going to move them over towards right about the middle. Maybe press F and zoom on them. And yeah, that's about where I want them more or less. So now what we're going to do with all four of them selected, I'm going to press Control D on these and duplicate all four of them. And now you can move them over and you can rotate all four of them together. So maybe scoot them like that. Press Control D again, scoot them over a bit more.
So you want them to be the same level as the thing you just made?
So same level as our little tiny guy right here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be placing them all below it.
Oh.
So they're all negative 400 for me. So I'm going to be like a mountain range below us. Cool. So maybe do this a few more times, however much you like. I think you can start getting a lot less precise with it. As time goes on, you start to get lazy. Cool. That's pretty good in my mind. That looks okay. And they're a bit off-centered, so we can fix that. I'm going to go ahead and just drag select all of them, scoot them over a bit. Yeah, that's about right. Okay. So we can press play and see how that looks. So you can't see them at all. Okay, that's a good test. We know that they're too far back then. So let's just go ahead and snag them, scoot them up a little bit, and press play now. There we go. We can start seeing the mountains popping in. They're looking more or less natural, adding some life to our scene. So that's good. So if we have that, now we have this entire range of mountains, and we can take all of them and just duplicate them again. Drag them out a little bit. I might rotate these 180 degrees, just give them a little bit more character. And then, yeah, drag them over. Maybe drag them up a little bit so that the mountain range is increasing. I think that looks nice. Yeah, it looks pretty good to me. And then I can just keep doing what I'm doing. Just double them, duplicate, drag out, and give some more character to this level. Okay, so now I've got this massive range of mountains below us, and let's see how it looks when I press play. Okay, we've got some mountains. It's not perfect, but it does the job. It gives something to look at in the background at least. More so than there was before, that's for sure. Okay. So if I have that, and I might want to go and click on my main camera up here and just press F so I can zoom back into my actual area. Cool. That works out pretty well. So some of you guys who are more used to visual design might be criticizing me right now because it looks pretty messy, to be fair. That's a lot of color being thrown at the user right now, and it's all pretty similar to each other. It's sort of tough to deal with. It's a lot coming in at once. And that's correct. This isn't what happens in real life. When there are mountains far in the distance, you don't see them bright as day. That's not how it works. Usually when things start getting further away from you, they start getting a bit foggier, they start getting a little bit lighter. So that tends to be what happens with mountains. So we are going to go ahead and add that in. And Unity gives us a great functionality to do that right out of the box. So if you guys still have your lighting panel, hop over to it. If you don't, you can do it again by going up to Window, Lighting, and then Settings. Whoops, don't do that one. Cool. And if you have that, you'll see we have all this stuff here. You can sort of scroll around. And if you go all the way to the bottom into the other settings, we have fog. And it's just a checkbox. So you just click on that. Boom. So you can see there is now a very heavy dosage of fog in our scene since everything in the background is completely gray. Might be a little bit strong, might be a tad. We can press play and see if that's what it looks like in play mode. Yep, completely gray. Okay, way too dark. Let's not do that. There's a few ways we can fix this. The main one is that we have our density parameter. And this one is pretty vague. It just says controls the density. Usually you just have to play around with this until it looks good. For me, I think 0.003 was pretty nice. I press play now. You can see it's there, but it starts getting foggy as it's further away, so it's not right in your face when you're playing it. It's a little bit more background. It feels like it's in the background. And that works out fine. There's still one issue that I have with this, is that usually when you're looking at mountains, the fog isn't this dark, musky gray. It doesn't look that great. So we can go onto our color and go ahead and change that. So usually it's more of like a cloudy fog, so I'm just going to go and sort of give it a nice cloudy tone, right around there maybe. Just drag it up to a lighter gray. Then you press play. Now you can see it sort of looks more like we're really high up and things are sort of getting fogged out behind us as we're up here, rolling our ball along mountains for whatever reason. Who knows what our goal is, actually. That's for you guys to determine.